Brought to you by Ayoko, Africa's leading integrated technology services company. It's time for Tech Talk. Google is set to pay 688 million rand to South Africa's media houses, and this follows the Competition Commission's final media and digital platforms market inquiry released after 2 years of evidence gathering. The inquiry found that major digital platforms dominate how South Africans access news and information. The inquiry looked at whether digital platform features restrict competition or undermine the act, affecting South Africa's news media sector. Business Day's Mudiwa Gavaza unpacks what this payout means for the media industry. Mudiwa, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. A payout of more than that 300 to 500 million rand recommended by the Competition Commission. Talk to me about the significance of this move in the context of years of declining revenues in South Africa's print, broadcast, media industry as a whole.
Well, firstly, it is, let's call it much above what people had expected. Because earlier this year, the Competition Commission gave out a recommendation, to say that this is what they were going to, put forward, that the likes of Google should pay 300 to 500 million rand, to these media houses. But the number that we ended up with was 688 million rand, so much above what had been expected. But if we're just going to contextualize it, it is a drop in the bucket, for a company as big as Google and for the billions that Google makes. Just for reference, just YouTube alone is a $20 billion business, just on its own. So it is significant for the local industry. However, it's certainly more that could possibly be done.
So the payout aside, there are also other issues, right? Evidence showing that Google's algorithms favor foreign publishers over local media. What practical steps are being taken to address that, to ensure that, a fairer distribution of South African content on Google platforms?
So there's a couple of things. Obviously, we're focusing on Google right now because that's the platform that is going to be paying the most amount of money here. But the inquiry itself, that media and digital platforms market inquiry actually goes across the board. You're looking at Google, Meta, Microsoft, TikTok, Twitter, and then the AI companies such as OpenAI, which runs ChatGPT. So there are remedies, across the board to try and help the media houses. So, for example, on the Google side, they've come up with remedies, so that people have the option of choosing. Do they want, when they look for news, do they want a preference of SA media news? Because right now, as you said, there's a preference towards Western media. So now people will have the option to toggle where they want their news to come from in terms of that. Also at the same time, the option for the likes of the SABC to monetize their archives a bit better through the YouTube channel. And then at the same time, an ability for the, for news media to get the credit that's due to them, especially on the social media platforms. I think for this one, the likes of Instagram and TikTok, were singled out to say there's a lot of news media that tends to flow through there, but it's usually not attributed correctly to the media houses.
And it'll be interesting to see how, those rules and regulations are implemented practically and see how some of those returns go back to the media houses. You touched on AI and AI tools used by these big tech companies. And I mean, to be quite honest, when you Google something now, before you go onto the site, you will see an AI-generated summary. That, of course, also limiting traffic onto, I guess, websites, a business live website. You'd rather just read the article, or rather the summary on Google. What's being done about that, right? We talk about how there'll be models to try and I guess, get the traffic off of social media and get it back into some of those media houses. What's being done about that? Because at the same time, it's on the citizen, the consumer themselves, right? If they actually want to go onto the website.
So what was interesting about the way that the report was framed, they actually made a distinction between how people are interacting with an AI platform. So let's call it a ChatGPT versus you doing what you've just spoken about, where you're going to search for something. So for example, if we use Google specifically, they make a distinction between you being on Gemini and asking Gemini, different questions, etc. Because they said, when consumers are interacting with AI in that way, news actually makes up a very small percentage of the content that ends up, being surfaced. However, when people are Googling something or making searches, that's when the news content actually, falls into the majority of content that is coming out. So they have made that distinction between how people are interacting with the platforms. And now they've actually recommended that the different AI systems, should have, better attribution. That's one. And two, the media houses also have a lot more control over where and how their news actually shows up in the AI platforms. And also at the same time, the commission has also recommended and agreed with the AI companies into how news content will actually show up in those AI summaries that you're talking about.
And surely that will also feed into, growing concerns about mis and disinformation. Mudiwa, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time and taking us through that report this afternoon. That was Business Day's Mudiwa Gavaza. Brought to you by Ayoko, Africa's leading integrated technology services company.